Welcome to a super fun card making video. Today I will be sharing 10 cards using just one paper pad and only basic other supplies. So you can definitely follow along if you have the same paper pad like I do. I will only be using one paper pad, foam tape, glue, scissors and my paper trimmer, so basic supplies. I will be playing with a junk journal paper pad. This is a new collection, Quiet Days by Stamperia, designed by my super talented friend Emilia, and it has just been released today. Now this junk journal paper pad will give you lots of background papers, as you can see, front and back, but you will also find some of those papers are actually stickers, as you can see here. These are the ones that have white backing. And there are plenty designs. The fun part is that these stickers are not shiny at all. They are just paper which is sticky at the back. And then there are other pages that give you designs that you can just pop out. So these are perfect for creating cards as well as art journals. And I absolutely love the junk journals because you don't really need to do any fuzzy cutting. Now that's the reason why these junk journals are very popular. They usually sell out within a few days, so you really need to move fast. Also check down below in the description, I do have coupon codes for the US, UK and European shops, so make sure to use them to get a discount if you want to get this one and craft with me. So let's start creating our 10 cards using only our basic supplies. Now just because I will be selling 10 cards, I'm not going to show you how I will cut out with my paper trimmer the background panels that I need or how I'm going to pop out all the elements. Just keep in mind whatever I'm using is inside that booklet. And at the end of the video, once I finish all my 10 cards, I'm going to show you the leftovers. So for the first card, I'm starting with this frame. It's a circular frame. At the back, I'm going to add some foam tape for dimension. And you will see that just because I'm working only with paper, I need to do some tips and tricks, some techniques, so that I can help all those papers stand against each other. I'm not going to use any ink blending or anything like that because I promised I will use only things from the paper pad. So my foam tape is my best friend because this is going to create shadows. It's going to lift one element on top of another. And I'm going to show you some extra tips and tricks as we go along. So I am going to double up the layer for the girl. And I'm going to place her as if she is coming from inside the frame. Out a little bit of that background panel. So again, I made sure that I kept that circle kind of offset. And now I'm going to place this panel on top of the background. Now another tip that you can do for helping those papers stand against each other is to use your scissors and just rough up the edges. It creates kind of a distressed look and it frays the edges. So when you are layering, it's going to show even more. It adds dimension. And then another tip that you can do is to just curl up some of the edges, just create some notches here and there. You can do that on the corners. I like to use my tweezers because it makes the job super easy, but if you don't have reverse tweezers like I do, just use your fingers. And then again, I'm going to place this panel on top of my background by using foam tape at the back. Now I need to embellish the frame a little bit. I popped out some of the flowers and some of the leaves. I'm going to create a tiny little cluster on one side of my frame. And on the other side, I'm going to add a butterfly. Also notice that some of the elements I stick them down with foam tape. For others, I just tack them down, like the leaves for example, with glue. This way I create different layers, and dimension is everything when it comes to creating cards just with paper, because you really need to kind of bring everything into life, and paper is completely flat. So just add layers and dimension, play with the colors and the composition to bring it to life. Now to finish off the card, I'm going to add my sentiment, and by the way, the cards that I'm making are just panels that I'm going to stick later on top of a pre-folded card that's 4¼ by 5½. Here I'm following the same design idea by curling up some of the edges, and here is my pre-folded card that I can stick my panel on top. Now, if you want, you can embellish your card by adding some gems, some pearls. You can use some contour liner and create dots here and there. If you don't have any of them, just leave it as it is. It looks beautiful either way. Now let's move on to card number 3. For this one, I decided to use the lady with the camera as my focal point. So I'm starting with one of those background panels on top of my card base. Again, that's 4¼ by 5½, and I cut out that purple panel to be slightly smaller than the standard card. So I end up having a little bit of border all around. Now I have also cut out some of the ephemera from the pad. I'm going to layer one on top of the other again by using foam tape. Now notice that for some of the layers I need to use both the foam tape and a glue just to make sure that everything is nicely leveled. And on the side I'm going to create a cluster with flowers, and I will also tag the leaf just to make it look more cute. Also it adds extra color. So the flower is going to give you the oranges, you do get the greens from the leaves. So it makes it more colorful. I absolutely love this one. It's such an elegant collection. Now keep in mind that in this collection you will find paper pads, normal paper pads, not like this one where you pop out the images. You will also get packs of ephemera and die cuts, so check it out. I'm sure you will love it. It's a very pretty and elegant one. Now for this card I'm going with a monochromatic kind of sepia theme. So I'm going to keep everything with no color at all. I'm just going to cluster some of the elements that I popped out. And again, keep in mind the backgrounds are from the paper included in this pad. So I just cut out panels, use it as my background, and then on top I layer the pop out images. Again, here I'm using that tip that I told you for fraying the edges. Foam tape at the back, and I'm going to layer one on top of the other. For the girl I do have foam tape at the back as well. So most of my cards end up having at least one layer of foam tape. Most of them have two. And the foam tape that I'm using is quite thin. It is very easy to tear off with my fingers. So I absolutely love it. It is a little bit expensive, but it is a huge roll. So I go through, it lasts me for a long time. And it's not very thick, which means that even if I go 2 layers up or even 3 layers, it still fits inside a normal envelope. So here you see I added foam tape only on the right and the left, so that it's going to be layered at the center, and just a little bit of glue there to finish it off. And again you can see some close-up photos. Now for the next card I decided to use these flowers as my focal point. Now these I had to fuzzy cut. It's from one of the pattern papers in the pad. I just used my scissors and went all around it, and I'm going to pair it with one of those postcards from the paper pad as well as a little ticket. I am going to stick that on top of my card base, and I like things sometimes to be offset a little bit on an angle. You don't have to do that, you can definitely just stick that completely straight, just align it. I'm going to finish it off by adding my sentiment again from the pad. And my card is ready. Really quick and simple, but so striking. Look at those flowers. And moving on to the next card, I'm going to use the camera as my focal point. So again, I'm using all those little tips for my background panels where I fray the edges. I curl up some corners or create notches, all of these elements that will add some extra dimension on my card. And then for the focal points to create my cluster, I did use some foam squares at the back. Now the way that I create the clusters is that I mainly pick the focal points. So here, for example, is the camera. And then I try to find elements that I can embellish it at the back. And of course I try to use a background panel, a background paper, which is going to help that camera pop. And here are some close-up photos on this card as well. Now for this card I decided to use the dog, which is absolutely adorable, as my focal point. And then just to create some interest, again I'm going to play with some elements just to add some dimension and layer one on top of the other. It's just a matter of layering, but keep in mind that I went and chose different colors. This is one of the tips that I can give you when you create clusters. Try to find different colors, try to find different sizes, bigger, smaller, and try to layer them so that you see just a little bit peeking from behind. So here I'm adding a sentiment, and again, if you notice, I did fray the edges, I did use foam tape at the back. I'm just not showing you all the steps because I'm sharing 10 cards and the video is going to be super long. But I hope you do get inspired just by looking at me creating my clusters. You see here, that was an opportunity for an extra texture. I decided to go with this thread. And you can see here some close-up photos. The cards come together easily, but I have to admit it's not that easy. As you see, I have to play around before I start filming to try and decide how the composition is going to look and if it is nicely balanced. So again here I chose to go with a butterfly. Again, I always start with a main big focal point and then try to embellish it at the back. So here I'm using one of the postcards as my background on top of my card page. Then I'm going to use this kind of as a belly band, and I decided to stick that at the center, and then on top of that I'm going to stick my butterfly. I'm using my scissors to chop off any excess, and this is a super easy card. Again, the butterfly, I had to fuzzy cut it. It was in one of those pattern papers, not the pop-out elements. And I want to have a little bit of dimension, so you see I don't use foam tape all the way to the edges of the wings. I'm just going to stick the main body, and then I can lift the corners so I have even more dimension and movement. Now I'm going to add one of the sentiments again from the paper pad, but you can definitely pair it up with stamps or any other sentiments that you may have. I just promised in the beginning I will use only things from the kit, so no stamping, no inking, no nothing. Just the glue, my scissors and my paper trimmer. Of course, if you do have a contour liner, some gems or some pearls, you can definitely use those to embellish it even more. And let's move on to the next card. This is where I chose to go with the cat. The cat was in my mind since the beginning. Look how adorable it is. You know I am a cat girl, so I just had to use it in one of my cards. And I want to make it look as if it is popping outside of that frame. So again, I'm using foam tape at the back. I'm going to place this frame on top of a piece of paper, which is lighter than the cat, so the cat, when I place it on top, is going to pop against the background. And now I do already have one layer of foam tape. Now for the cat I need to have 2 layers so that it pops over that frame. And then to embellish it I decided to go with that thread and a couple of spool of threads at the back, just to make it look more playful. I know my cat loves those things. So I also love that it is pink. It really adds an extra touch of cuteness on my card. And now let's work on the base. So I have my card base here and I did cut out a panel from the pattern paper. I'm going to stick that down, and I always like to go with glue so that I can slide it in place. You see that I tend to create panels that are smaller than my card base because I absolutely love that frame. And you see me here debating whether I want to place it aligned at the center or I want to have it on an angle. I ended up going on an angle. I always like things offset for some reason. And then I'm going to finish it off by adding my sentiment. Now I'm just going to cut off that butterfly and just tuck it behind. And you can see here some close-up photos. Now for the next card, I started with that little girl that is sitting and looking with her cat. And I thought, let's have them look into the photos. So I created a background again, just like I always do. And then I just cut out those two photos. And I'm just going to adhere them together so that they look like one piece. I'm just going to add some glue there. And I don't really measure, I always eyeball things. So notice that I did all my tips and tricks here. I did fray the edges. I am using the curling of the corners technique. Again, using my tweezers, but you can use your fingers for that. And here I'm just using my scissors to cut off a little bit from the bottom because it was quite big. It didn't fit the card. And now at the back I'm going to add some foam tape. Notice that I don't add foam tape all the way at the back. Really, it's not going to ruin anything if you don't add too much foam tape. Plus it's going to give you the opportunity to tuck things underneath if you decide to do so later on as you build your composition. So here I'm going to add a little bit of color, otherwise the card would look very sepia. So I'm adding a little bit of color with the flower compositions. And then for the sentiment, I decided to go with this label that says together, which I'm going to stick at the bottom. I find this is such a sweet card. But my favorite is the last one, and I want you to let me know in the comments which one of the 10 cards was your favorite. I always love to read these comments. So for this one, I'm going with a sewing machine as my focal point. So I decided to have a frame at the back. I don't want to use the flower corners, that's why I just chopped some of them, because I am going to create different clusters on those on those two corners. For the back, I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape, again using the same techniques that I am using throughout the cards. You can definitely use even more foam tape than I do, but for me that's enough. I don't find that they really need tons of glue or tons of foam tape. They really hold up just fine. Plus that paper is kind of thick, so it is nice and sturdy. Now I backed up the frame with some scrap piece of paper. Then I'm creating a cluster on one side, and since the theme is the sewing machine as the focal point, I'm using similar elements to match that theme. Now for the back of my sewing machine, I do have 2 times the foam tape so that it is way leveled than the frame. And then on the other side, I'm going to use these 2 buttons from the paper pad, and these 2 buttons already have some buttonholes. So I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to introduce some thread, which is going to give more interest on my card and actually give extra texture. So I just thread through those buttonholes, white thread, and I'm going to just secure it at the back with foam tape. So the thread is not going to go anywhere, it's not going to untie, and I'm just going to create the cluster up at the top. For that I'm using the 2 buttons, the heart and the circular one, and then I'm also going to tuck behind some leaves, because why not? So instead of creating a cluster with flowers as we would normally do, I created a cluster with the buttons plus the thread as an extra embellishment. And yes, the thread was not in the tools that I mentioned in the beginning, but you can definitely find some thread in your stash, I'm sure. So now I am going to create the background. For that I went with a pattern paper that has the newspaper print on top. Again, slightly smaller to end up with a little border. Now I'm going to audition and decide where I want that cluster to go. And where I want the embellishment, the sentiment to go, I'm going to stick that with glue down. Again, I'm using liquid glue because I can slide things before the set, which is something I cannot do with tape. Then I'm going to add my sentiment and my card is finished. I'm going to show you some close-up photos. Oh yes, you see I always have to do the finishing touch. Now here are some close-up photos, and just like I promised in the beginning, I'm going to show you what is left. So here are all the cards that I created, all 10 of them in all their glory. I absolutely adore them. Just gorgeous, all of them. It is such a beautiful collection. And now here are the leftovers. I haven't used much of the stickers. These are the 4 sticker pages. From the pages where you pop out the elements, I did use plenty of them. So I still have enough to make way more cards than I have actually created. And these are not the only ones. I do pop out some of the elements just to audition and decide if I want to use them on my cards, but I ended up not using them. So you see, I do have plenty of ephemera to create even more cards. And of course, from the pattern papers, I end up having lots and lots that can be used as backgrounds for even more cards. So that's it for today. Let me know if you like this type of videos. Leave a comment, like the video, and even hype the video, which is a new feature. Thank you all so much for watching today, and I'll see you all next time.